everyone, it's Katie here. Again, thank you all for joining me today. I'm just going to wait about another minute or so before we get started. But just to double check, can you all hear me all right? All right, thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Christina. Thank you, Daphne. Okay, so it's a little after 3 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let me just start with some housekeeping rules, I guess, to say. As I had mentioned a few times already, I will be recording this webinar and sending it out along with the related materials that I'll be covering today in an email on Monday. So please keep an eye out for that. Also, you'll notice that you are muted. If you do have a question at any point in time, you can put if you want to click on the raised hand button, I can unmute you, or if you want to type a question into the questions box, I'll be going through those as frequently as I can, and hopefully do my best to answer any questions that you may have. I'll also make sure to save time at the end of today's webinar to answer any remaining questions. So I guess we're going to go ahead and get started then. So again, my name is Katie Reich, and I am the Partnerships Manager for YSA. This is my second year with the Lead Agency Program, and I'm especially excited to see both returning names, some veteran names here, as well as a number of new lead agencies joining us this year. So I'm really excited to be looking forward, to be working with you all over the next couple months. And if you ever need anything, please just let me know. One of the things that I particularly love about the Lead Agency Program is that we really want to help you make it your own. We understand that you as organizations and schools have programming going on all year round. And we want to make sure that with the Lead Agency Program that we're not overwhelming you. We're helping you build both with your capacity to lead projects, but also to really help you get your name out into your community, into the wider community, and really embrace the ideas and the passions and the drive that the youth that you're working with have. So in today's webinar, I'm going to be talking about a couple different things. So first off, I'm going to go over the lead agency timeline. So this will be shared with you. I will be touching on some of our key MOU, Memorandum of Understanding requirements, kind of some of the key dates and some of the key points to keep in mind. I'll be going over some of our available resources, particularly those that you'll be needing between the rest of this month and throughout January. And then kind of a bit of a preview as to what we have in store for you between now and GYSD through the end of May and the reporting period for you. So we'll go ahead and get started right off the bat with our lead agency program timeline. For those of you who were lead agencies in the past, you'll notice that this year we have one specific timeline. I want to try and simplify it a little bit for you, learn from last year as well as from my predecessors to really make sure that this program can continue to grow and better benefit each of our lead agencies. So one of those was to kind of get all of the timeline together in one place. So you will notice particularly that the timeline is a little bit communications heavy. And while communications through newsletters, through social media, through other outreach to resources in your community, there are other key components of the lead agency program, things like partnership outreach, working with youth, including youth who are not traditionally asked to serve, promotion, of youth voice, and other components. I will talk a little bit more about those a little bit later, and we will have specific webinars focusing on some of those different areas. But the timeline itself does somewhat focus on social media relations. But again, through our conversations and through the emails and the newsletters I send out, we'll be getting more in depth with those other capacity building areas. So you'll see a few different fonts and typefaces in the actual timeline. So anything that is in bold is a requirement as per your memorandum of understanding. Please, please, please make sure that you're able to do all of these. If for some reason you realize ahead of time that you may not make a deadline, please just let me know. I'm more than happy to work with you on anything that comes up. I promise I will not rip anyone's head from their shoulders. So then the next thing, the items that are italicized, just kind of reminders, heads up throughout the program, things like, making sure that you're able to submit any calendar notifications to your local, your local news media, researching contacts, reminders for reaching out to organizations, things to keep in mind during your planning process. And lastly, any other items that are in plain text are really going to be your program updates. Things like your newsletters coming out. I'll be adding in the dates for each of the orientation webinars as well into this document before I send it out to you. So far in December, you've received your program newsletter. Between now and throughout January, I would highly recommend liking and following YSA on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram if you haven't done so already. One of the things I've been trying to do is make sure that for YSA, our account is liking your organization or your school's accounts as well. Just another great way to interact and see what types of projects and programs you're up to throughout the year. And think about sharing some YSA messages as well. We'll be sharing things for different grants, things related to Global Youth Service Day, things related to volunteerism and the work of youth in the field as well. And then now that we're following you all, we'll be able to also share the things that you have going on. So I've wrong button. Another great thing that you can do right now, if you haven't done so already, announce that you are designated as a YSA lead agency. I'll be sharing a badge that you can add to your website or any of your social media, a blog, what have you, that designates you as a lead agency. This was something that we had started last year, and I just really like the idea of it, so we're going to continue it this year as well. Again, you're welcome to highlight that badge on your website, but no means are you required to. Also, this time, kind of starting your project early. If you already have an idea as to what your project is going to be, if you and your youth are still working on kind of finalizing the details of your project, no problem. I know all organizations work at different paces. But this is also a really great time to research and reach out to some of your local media contacts. We do have a press release that announces Global Youth Service Day, as well as you as an organization or a school, that you, in fact, are a lead agency this year. And we really want to see is also if you have any MLK Day plans. That's really kind of one of the big 3 days of service that YSA recognizes, in addition to kind of all of the other different days of service throughout the year: International Volunteer Day, International Day of Youth, but really kind of the big 3 service-related days in the U.S. We see MLK Day in January, we see 9/11 Day in the fall, and then we have GYSD in April. It's also a great time to submit the calendar listing to long lead productions, so like magazines, maybe a local community website. It is really a great way to kind of get your foot in the door and build the momentum leading up to your Global Youth Service Day project. So of course we have our webinar today, and then once we get into January, I'll be sending out a few things pretty early in January. You'll receive your progress report draft that you'll end up filling out kind of early on in your process, really just to get an idea as to kind of where you are right now, as well as it allows us to kind of share your story in the lead up to Global Youth Service Day. So that will be sent to you, and you'll see it in your inbox the morning of Tuesday the 2nd, because I know most people will be out of the office on New Year's Day. The following week, I'll be sending out our January newsletter with a few more programmatic updates. On the 18th, which is a Thursday, we will have our January webinar. I'm still thinking about different timeframes because I know we do have lead agencies across the country, and I always want to try to make sure that we're able to do these webinars at a time that's convenient to all of you. And then, of course, January 15th, MLK Day of Service. Throughout January, a few things to keep in mind. Sharing those GYSD messages to your social networks. Please also make sure to add the GYSD.org and YSA.org links to your website. This will be able to, so for when people who work with you and are interested in your work, when they go to your website, they'll be able to see those links. They'll direct them to our website where you'll also be featured. So I'm actually working on creating a resource with all of your organizations to put on our website. In January, kind of as the ball starts to get rolling, think about any graphics or any collateral, things like flyers or posters that you want to do for Global Youth Service Day. When you are preparing those, please just make sure that you also include the YSA and GYSD logos, as well as either the Mott Foundation or the State Farm logo. Now, the reason that we've also included the Mott Foundation logo or the State Farm logo is because those are two sponsors this year of the lead agency program. So on your MOU, you will have noticed either it designated that you were that you are sponsored by the Mott Foundation or you are sponsored by State Farm. Again, I'm more than happy to send out a reminder as to which funder you are aligned with. Just let me know. I will also make sure to when I'm sending out the logos, I'll make sure to only send you the logo for the sponsor that you're affiliated with, just to minimize as much confusion as possible. We are also in the process of setting up our registration page for your GYSD projects. So once that is up, I will make sure to send out that link, and then you can start registering your GYSD events as well as the events of your partner coalition. You can register them directly, or you can have them register their own projects. Moving into February, again, we're going to ask that you continue to share those prescribed messages. Provide your press release templates, your social media messages to your partner coalition members as well, so that they can get the word out to their audience. And again, we'll be providing these templates that you're welcome to modify. And then in February, the end of February is going to be when we're going to ask for you to turn in your progress report. Moving through March, some of the same things, again, continuing to share those messages. You'll have your newsletter, we'll have our webinar, and you'll work on building kind of your media list, following up with your media contacts as well, making sure that you have any other collateral material like banners, t-shirts, that you make sure that they're printed. We've noticed that banners are definitely a great backdrop for photos. And really kind of start your final push for social media and outreach. You want to do that about 4 weeks before GYSD, so that you have that full month ahead of you. March 1st, so the day after your progress report is submitted, I'll be sharing out a draft of the final report. That way you have a better idea as to kind of the things that we're going to be asking you about when you submit the final report. Things like number of youth that are serving as volunteers, the number of total hours, some more information about your project, things kind of that nature. And then March 19th will also be the registration deadline for registering projects for Global Youth Service Day. And then we move into April, GYSD month. Kind of the big things are really just, again, to help you lead up and do as much outreach and hopefully gain as many volunteers and as much of an audience as you can for Global Youth Service Day. Going through kind of that final checklist, making sure that everything is shipshape and ready to go, and continuing to share your story throughout. Oftentimes, we see the project right at the end, but one of the great things, especially when we work with youth, we love seeing kind of how they're getting engaged at every single step of the process. So, of course, the work that they're doing and the impact that they make at the end of the project, but how are they getting involved in project planning? Are they the ones that are reaching out to maybe local officials? Are they doing the research and figuring out what specific community issue that they want to address? We love seeing these photos and videos throughout. So please make sure to keep sharing those with us. And then lastly, in May, we will have the final report due on May 21st. Again, I'll make sure to send out reminders as these deadlines approach, and they'll be highlighted in future webinars. They'll be highlighted in future newsletters as well. So you'll have all of that information in multiple times. So I just want to go to the MOU briefly. Just want to make sure I have the right tab open. All right. So the MOU that's in front of you is particularly for the Mott Foundation. Now, the MOU for the Mott Foundation, for those of you who are sponsored by the Mott Foundation, and for those of you who are sponsored by State Farm, are exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the name Charles Stewart Mott Foundation or State Farm. That is the only difference between the two grant agreements. So just to go through a few key points that were not necessarily in the timeline. Okay. So again, I will be providing you with your the calendar of, or I'm sorry, the timeline of events for the lead agency program, newsletters, webinars. I'm available if you ever need to chat or email or go through any things that you have questions about or need some guidance on. I'm more than happy to sit down with you and chat. Again, we'll be providing a lot of these resources, both tip sheets as well as templates. I'm currently working on putting together kind of a one big lead agency packet that will be available online for you to modify as you wish, to use as you wish, including tip sheets for contacting government officials, tips for doing your reflection throughout your project, things that you should keep in mind at all different stages in your planning and execution process of your project. Again, we have these deadlines, January 1st for when I will make sure to send you the progress report. I'll make sure to send you the final report by March 1st. Please make sure to share the online project registration system with your partners once that's released. And make sure that you're adding the links of YSA.org and GYSD.org to your websites. Again, we'll make sure to, I'll be making sure to add all of your websites and your contact information to our YSA site as well. And again, you are welcome as a member of our Global Partner Network. I'll also be sharing kind of first thought with you when we are opening new grant programs and other award opportunities. All right. So then just a couple of the important lead agency requirements for you as a school or an organization. So again, Global Youth Service Day is going to be April 20th to 22nd of 2018. That'll be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So two of the other really big things that are not featured in the timeline are these two right here. So inviting members of media, other community leaders, elected officials, VIPs, ask them to participate. Oftentimes, elected officials, especially if they're part of the national government, so maybe your senators or your representatives, even if they're unable to come, still extend that offer to them. Oftentimes, they may send a staff member to attend on their behalf. They may be able to feature your project across their social media, and oftentimes they like to get involved themselves. I've seen stories of mayors, of representatives, of senators all getting in, doing volunteer work alongside the youth that they represent. In addition to engaging these VIPs or elected officials, we also want you to engage partners to help facilitate these projects. Now, we understand that oftentimes, you might reach out and never hear back. We understand we fully understand that happens. And one of the reasons why we ask you to engage partners. Now, the 10 partners can be a combination of organizations and schools. It doesn't have to just be one or the other. Is really a great. So the reason that we really ask for this is so that you can engage different types of youth, as well as you're open to a much larger cohort of youth that you're able to inspire through your work, and that are able to put their ideas and their thoughts into helping their own community as well. Now, when you work with these partners, you can all work together and do one extremely large-scale project, or you can work together and do individual projects. If you do individual projects, that is completely fine. Their numbers, since they're working with you to improve the community for Global Youth Service Day, you are welcome to count their numbers in your total. Okay. So then again, kind of we just ask that you continue to share messages, including YSA resources, grants, different awards and programs, and some training opportunities that we'll have available. So we ask that you please continue to share them with your partners, your networks, schools, and youth. Again, I mentioned earlier the co-branding of any promotional materials to include YSA, GYSD logos, and either Charles Stewart Mott Foundation or State Farm. Oftentimes we're asked kind of how can we use the funding. So again, you can use them for project supplies, mini grants, promotional materials, compensation, partner meetings, other expenses, as long as you tell us how the funding is used in your final report. If you have any questions at any time as to how you can use those funds, please just reach out, let me know, and I will get you a clear answer as soon as I possibly can. And then kind of as we move down, one of the great things about the lead agency program that I also love, I know there's a lot of things about this program that I love. We're able to get a lot of organizations that are really passionate about working with youth to make a change together at once. And as I had mentioned right at the beginning of the webinar, we have many new lead agencies and we have many veteran lead agencies. Some veteran lead agencies have been with us. I believe we have one that is with us that has been a lead agency for the past 20 years. So, and kind of every year there's different programming going on. So we want to make it possible for you to work with one another and share different thoughts, different challenges that you may have faced, different ways you've overcome those challenges as well. So I'm going to try and make sure to build that time into our webinars for you to kind of share your thoughts and your experiences with one another as well. All right. So then kind of as we get towards the end, again, just some of our deadlines. So the progress report is going to be due on February 28th. Please make sure that your and your partner's events are registered by March 19th. And the final report is going to be due May 21st. All right. So I know I just threw a lot at you. I'm going to go ahead and look at the question box, see if anyone has anything. Please feel free to put anything into the question box that you need to ask, or go ahead and put a hand up. So let's see. To Crystal, to confirm, logos and materials are mentioned here. We'll receive those from you next week. Yes, I'll be sending out an email on Monday that will contain your logos, the other materials I'm mentioning, a few others, as well as the YouTube link for our webinar. And I'll go through everything that I will be including in that newsletter at the end of the webinar. All right. And then the other question we have, so depending on, so with State Farm, versus Mott. The other thing is that with State Farm, yes, we ask that you reach out to your local State Farm representatives. That's one thing that State Farm asks of us to ask our lead agencies. With the Mott Foundation, that is not a requirement for this grant for you. You are welcome to invite them because I know you have the Mott Foundation, Crystal, kind of in your backyard. So you're welcome to invite the Mott representatives. We don't have any resources for that outreach. However, we do have we do have a resource for how to reach out to community partners. That is something that you can tailor to kind of fit the situation that is before you. We also have a separate resource to do outreach toward government officials, and kind of that is pretty similar. Usually just an email letting them know kind of about your project is kind of a great way to get started, is kind of the best way to really reach out to them. From my understanding, I'm not sure as to whether or not State Farm has let their representatives know that people may be reaching out to them, but that is something that I can double check with our contact there, and I can let you know as well. You're welcome, Crystal. Any other questions at this point? Oh, hi, Dan. Glad to have you guys back again. All right. So since Crystal mentioned some resources, I'm actually going to go ahead and switch gears and talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have available right now, and some of the ones that I'll be sending over to you in the email on Monday. Again, the rest of them I will be sending out in a separate email, kind of giving you the lead agency toolkit with all of the resources available to you. So first off, on Monday, I will be sending you the timeline as well as the logos that are relevant to your project, whether they're logos for the Mott Foundation or logos for State Farm. I'll also make sure to send you a copy of the MOU. If I can make sure I open up the right tab. I had it in front of me, of course. It's how I always do it. So I'll send you a copy of the MOU. I will also send over the timeline that we went over. I'll make sure to add in the dates of the webinars as well. I'll try to do those on a few different days throughout the week, a few different times. That way we can make sure that as many people are able to participate and ask questions live as is possible. Okay. I also mentioned a press release. I'll be sending that out too. And that calendar listing template so that you can go ahead and start reaching out to your local news sources, get that information out there, and then start to recruit partners. The next webinar that we're going to be doing on January 18th will focus on outreach to community partners, both organizations and schools. So another resource that I'm going to be sending out was something that myself and one of my colleagues had used a couple days ago. We were in Flint, Michigan with one of our lead agencies this year. Genesee serves in the United Way of Genesee County. And one of the things that we shared with them was what we're calling our co-pilot checklist. So pilots, no matter how many years they've been in the field, always, every time before they fly, they go through a checklist. I guess for my colleague and I, it was a good thing because when we were flying into Flint where there was cold and snow, the ionizer that keeps the ice out of one of the jets was broken. So we would have had a bit of a problem had the pilot and the co-pilot not gone through the checklist to make sure that everything was shipshape. So in YSA's history, we've done a lot of research into kind of things that you definitely need to have a successful project, things that through multiple reviews, we've had consultants come in, go through and kind of see and analyze the different projects, long-term, short-term, done by schools, done by organizations, done by youth themselves, awareness projects, service projects, advocacy projects, and philanthropy projects. They've noticed 5 things that are consistent across every single one of those projects that has led to project success. And again, this checklist is something that we'll be sharing with you as well. So things to make sure, just kind of to keep in the back of your mind as you're going through your project. Youth voice. Are youth playing an integral role in the project? Not just volunteers in carrying out the project, but in the planning process as well. Do you have issue-specific resources and partners? Really to make sure that to help really understand the project that's being carried out and understanding the challenges that relate to it. Are you doing meaningful reflection? Again, not just at the end of the project, but at the start and throughout. We do have a tip sheet on that. I will be sharing that as well. Do the youth that you're working with understand the impact that they're making in the community? And is your project itself doable? Sometimes we see projects that are submitted that, they're great ideas, but when it comes down to the actual execution of the project, it's not really feasible. So that's really, really key to make sure that the project that you want to do, you can actually do it. And then kind of thinking about, every lead agency wants to be successful. They all want to make sure that the projects are engaging, that youth are involved, that they're making an impact. So kind of what are some things that really show what a successful lead agency looks like? So these are things that we've found from past lead agencies that have really stood out, that they've noted have helped them be successful. Again, another resource that I'll be sharing with you. So things like engaging different partners for different purposes. You may engage issue experts during the investigation and planning stage of your project, and you may engage someone who is a leader in the community to perhaps speak at your celebration event, or get involved in the actual volunteering of your project. Reaching out and building new partners and involving them in the planning of your Global Youth Service Day project or projects. Having diverse youth leaders and youth volunteers and really taking their thoughts and their passions and incorporating those into the project. Especially youth who are not traditionally asked to serve. Oftentimes we see youth with disabilities as recipients of service, youth from low-income areas as recipients of service. But we also want to show those youth that what they want to do in their voice, their thoughts, they matter as well. So incorporating youth not traditionally asked to serve into your project, youth as volunteers and as project planners. Getting support from, your local businesses, local community organizations, because that's really going to amplify the voice and the reach that your project will have. Preparing projects that youth can continue throughout and past Global Youth Service Day. Using some of the resources, the tools, and the trainings that we have available for you. We also asking kind of your local community, adults as well, to get involved in these activities. And again, kind of taking advantage of GYSD as an opportunity to really get your organization and your work out there. And then kind of lastly, integrating what we call the 4 C's. So collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and creativity into your Global Youth Service Day programming. Fortune 500 companies have been polled to see what are the top skills that they want to see or that they're looking for when they're hiring. And these 4, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and creativity, all fall within those top 10 skills. critical thinking is actually number one. And then lastly, sharing the stories, because the stories both can show the work and the passion that your youth have, as well as inspire other youth to get involved in the future. So, just going to take a quick look as to kind of what we have in store for you over the coming months. Then I'll take a few more questions and do a brief wrap up, and we'll call it a day for you. So over the next couple months, as we went through in the timeline, we'll be doing different webinars and different newsletters each month. When you had filled out your application to become a lead agency, one of the questions that I had asked of you was, what are some of the areas of capacity building that you are interested in? And the two most common were building a coalition of partners, so organizations and schools, as well as integrating youth voice and bringing in first-time volunteers and youth who are not traditionally not asked to serve. So those are actually going to be the topics of our next two webinars. Likely, our January webinar will focus on that partnership building, and the February webinar will focus on integrating youth voice. Now that may swap depending on just kind of the timeline of our program, but our next two webinars will focus on those two capacity building areas, because really those are core to help you work with the youth to continue to plan these projects. So then again on Monday, you'll receive your newsletter that will contain the YouTube link for this video. I will also be including a copy of the timeline, the logo that's relevant to the logos that are relevant to your organization, a PDF of your MOU, whether you are a State Farm grantee or a Mott Foundation grantee. I will also include a press release and a calendar listing template, a sample photo release, which is very important if you are working with youth under the age of 18, so that you can go ahead, so that you can share those photos on social media, on blogs, what have you. And this sample photo release is if you need a photo release. I know many organizations and schools have already gone through the whole photo release process. This is just an additional resource for you if you need it. I'll make sure to add in what a successful lead agency looks like, as well as the co-pilot checklist. Then later in January, we should have that link ready for you to start registering your projects. So I'll be sending a few emails to you over the next coming weeks with more information, with more of those resources. And as always, just feel free to give me a call if you have any questions, if you're having any difficulty with your projects. I know in the past we've had to work with some lead agencies to kind of come up with new ideas because maybe snow got in the way and inhibited, strongly inhibited project plans, or or something really big has happened in the area. I know we worked a lot with Houston and Florida after the hurricanes this summer and early into the fall. So if there's anything that comes up that is really impacting your project, please just let me know. With that being said, I will do another check, see if anyone has any questions, or if anyone has a hand up and I can do an unmute. Go ahead and let me know. right. So I am not seeing anything in the question box. If you have anything that you want to add in later, please just let me know. I'll do my best to answer you as soon as possible. Other than that, keep an eye out for an email from me on Monday. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you all have a happy holiday. Thanks again. Bye-bye.